Final case study by Isabella Johnson
and Olivia Allaire.
Today, schools are forced to give students a test in mathematics, science, and language arts to compare to the state standards of what level a child should be at for each of these subjects. This is in accordance to the No Child Left Behind Act. Students are forced to show what they've learned all year within a few days and a few tests. The fact that so much rides on these few days makes it a dreadful day for everyone. Williams, author of Jewels on Schools, mentions her children and how they all have fears of testing because it's about being better than the student next to you. She said, "I want them to understand and use math and science creatively and effectively. I want them to be able to solve problems rather than admire and glorify problems. These tests do everything but that. They provide a way of thinking for a child that if they don't do the best, they aren't the best." Finland believes that an educational system that is equitable and where students learn well is also able to redress the effects of broader social and economic inequalities. Finland has gotten rid of their standardized testing in hopes that giving each student an equal opportunity to perform to their own specific abilities will help them to succeed at a higher level than if they're forced to learn certain curriculum. Glitter and Glass brought up a myth that because we have standardized testing, it gives us a second-rate education system. Our school systems aren't bad, but they're performing at a lower level than other countries. Many Americans believe that the U.S. education systems are in a crisis when comparing scores with other countries. However, international test scores are poor indicators to use in the ranking of quality of national education systems. The United States is very different from Finland. In the U.S., they get more homework, which results in lower test scores, and they have to pay for schooling. In Finland, they have higher graduation rates, some of the top scores, and they don't have to pay for any college or schooling. The No Child Left Behind Act forces students to achieve a certain standard in math and reading. Because of this requirement, the score of students in grades K through 12 in the U.S. have decreased dramatically when compared to Finland. Since Finland doesn't have standardized testing, their test scores have proven to be higher because of this. Finland has free school, which in turn allows more students to have the opportunity to attend secondary education. They also have higher graduation rates because teachers are held to a higher standard and all students have equal opportunities. Finland also has less homework. They focus more on learning the curriculum in school instead of outside of school.
A lot of people think that sending their children to a school with a hefty tuition fee means their child will receive a better education. This has created a lot of competition between charter, private, and public schooling in the U.S. today. The definition of a charter school is a publicly funded, independent school established by teachers, parents, or community groups under the terms of a charter with a local or national authority. A private school is a school supported by a private organization or private individuals rather than by the government. A public school is a school supported by public funds. People want us to believe that going to a charter or private school is beneficial for the children because of how much money you put into it. But in reality, the Crowder report found more than 80% of charter schools are either no better or worse than the traditional public schools in reading and math. Traditional public schools have been outperforming newer charter schools and private schools in these subjects. Schallberg says there seems to be no positive correlation between spending and measured outcomes in education. Finland has accomplished world-class educational performance at a reasonable cost, and the United States has high levels of spending in education, but students' results are still only moderate. Regression indicates negative independency between education spending and student achievements. Although public schools sometimes outperform private and charter schools, they still have some downsides. Williams says, "I do believe there is such a thing as too many expectations, funding too thin, and staffs at the breaking point. We need to decide what we want and communicate it to our schools."
Merit pay is a raise in the teacher's pay based on performance aspects of certain criteria. Teachers have begun to focus more on getting the job done to the ability needed for the raise rather than based on standards. The teacher shown here gave her students a test. Most failed, and this means she will get paid less than the male teacher in the next scene. This teacher gave the same test to his students, and most performed well. This in turn pays him more money than the other teacher because of the performance of his students. Merit pay influences teacher competition. Much of what teachers do is hard to measure accurately, and thus bonuses dependent on objective measures seem totally inappropriate. A teacher's job is to provide a well-developed understanding of logical smarts and personal life skills to use for the future. Becoming a primary school teacher in Finland is highly competitive. Accepting such a small percentage of teachers helps to ensure that they are of quality and excellence. It also ensures that the teachers want the job to make an impact on students and won't be so interested in possible raises. A singularity is something that stands out to a student and helps them to recognize something from another perspective. Williams says they are rarely about the subject being taught or the sport being coached. A singularity is a learning lesson beyond the books. They are life lessons the student will remember years later. They provide another reason to teach beyond what the standards state, and with merit pay, these singularities tend to be lost or forgotten.
created using Powtoon.